Christianity's been around for about 2,000 years, and over the last 2,000 years it's gone through quite a metamorphosis. Today we're going to talk about the origins of the world's most popular religion. As always, you should have your notebook open to the correct page. At the top you should have the title of the notes. You should also draw a line about 2.5 inches from the left-hand side straight down. This will divide your notebook paper into 2 sections. Area A will be where the area you put the keywords in. Area C is where you'll take most of your notes, draw your little diagrams, bullet notes. And finally, Area B is where you'll do your reflections, summaries, or questions that you have for me. Our topics include the influence of Hellenism, the Maccabees and their revolt against the Greek and Persian ideas, the rise of Jesus and his death, Paul, who took over, the organization of the Catholic Church, and finally, the tenets or foundations of the Catholic Church. If you'd ask most people, they'd say Christianity starts with Jesus. But for us, we need to go back 300 years before Jesus just so we can understand a little bit more about its origins. We have to start with the successful campaigns of a Macedonian general named Alexander the Great. As Alexander conquered from Greece all the way to India, he spread Greek culture, mixed it with Persian and Egyptian culture. This mixture today is called Hellenism. In the middle of this great empire, we find the Hebrews. Hellenism will have an influence on the Hebrews, inspiring debate in the temple and new interpretation of their religion. The Maccabean Revolt is probably most famously remembered because of Hanukkah. Modern-day Hanukkah celebrates the revolt of the Jews against the Persian, as the Persian king decided to try to wipe out the Jewish community about 160 years before Jesus. At this time, there was not one giant unified Jewish or Hebrew tribe of people or culture or city. They had been separated, they had been scattered, and it was the Maccabean Revolt and their success in holding off the Persians that nationalized them, that brought the Jewish community together, reunified them. Now, after 150 years of Hellenism, you now have Jews from different parts of the Mediterranean now talking about what it is to be Jewish. This new Hellenistic discussion is going to start happening in the temples. Rabbis are going to be talking what it means to be a Jew now. And Judaism is going to start to change, it's out of this turmoil that people like Jesus will be raised in, and this open discussions, which will lead to offshoots of Judaism. And so it's during the next 150 years that there'll be discussions about spirituality, angelic spirits, is there a heaven, what happens when someone dies. And that'll pave the way for people like Jesus. Now we have Jesus. Like others during his time, he preached a reformed version of Judaism. At this time, the Romans had controlled most of the Mediterranean and were oppressing the Jews. To them, it must have felt like the end of the world. It was at this time that Jesus was also preaching about the end of the world. Those who were pious would end up going to heaven, while those who were sinful would end up being damned for eternity. Jesus had amassed a large following, and this frightened the Romans because they feared another rebellion, another revolt out of Jerusalem. So they had him arrested, and they had him put to death. It was at this time that Saul, a Jew and a Roman citizen, noticed that there was a power vacuum. With no Jesus, who would lead the faithful? Saul, now known as Paul, started organizing these early Christian converts. In fact, he started opening up Christianity to non-Jewish converts. This was seen as a bad idea. Many of the first Jewish converts to Christianity felt that they were entitled to this new religion, not non-Jews, that the religion should only be opened to Jews to convert to Christianity. But Paul knew in order to get this religion to survive, it would have to grow, it would have to be expanded, it would have to be organized. In order to get it to grow quickly, he omitted or modified Jewish customs and made it easier for people to convert to Christianity. For example, new Christians didn't have to stay kosher. The Romans had inadvertently made spreading Christianity easier for Paul. They built thousands of miles of roads. They also kept the peace, which made it a lot easier to travel throughout the Mediterranean. And along these roads, merchants used a common language called coin. Paul quickly adapted that Greek dialect and started preaching Christianity in Greek. In fact, it's from the Greeks that we get the word Christian. Paul had a plan. If he could convert the emperor of Rome to Christianity, then not only would the religion become legal, but the religion would spread from the top down. And it worked. But it took about 300 years. In the 300s, Constantine became the very first Roman emperor who was Christian. And now that they had support from the emperor, they could solidify, they could organize, they could create a real organized Christian church. So throughout the 4th century, bishops from all over the Mediterranean would meet regularly and discuss what it means to be a Christian. It was at these regular meetings in Nicaea that helped organize what today is known as the Catholic Church. And it was there that they decided a formal, standardized Bible needed to be created nearly 300 years after the death of Jesus. So, after several years and several meetings, they finally came up with a standard of practices. The foundation of this new church will be built on 5 different categories. Firstly, it would be a monotheistic religion focused around the life of Jesus. Secondly, the combined stories of the Bible will be considered the Word of God. Also, the afterlife is crucial to this religion. Good will get you to heaven. Bad, or turning away from the church, will send you to hell. To know the difference between right and wrong, and to understand the Bible, and to understand Jesus, to get you to heaven, of course, you need to talk to the experts, and the experts are those members of the church, the bishops, the priests, the cardinals, the pope. Finally, the clergy can administer special blessings known as sacraments that can help someone on their way to heaven. This concludes our discussion of early Christianity. Again, we covered Hellenism, the Maccabean Revolt, Jesus, Paul, the Catholic Church, and the tenets of Christianity. Here we are at the bottom of our notes. This is the summary section. This is where you need to go back and read through your notes and create some sort of connection. So the response is going to ask you to either summarize or draw some graphics or even come up with some questions that might show up on a test or questions you might want to ask me. You want to do this at the bottom of every note page.